Today is February 17th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 11, A Vision for You, page 154 through 156. And we're going to read Step 7, page 70, the second half of the 12 and 12. So with all that, my friends, let's get right to the good stuff. All right, my friends. So if you recall from yesterday's reading in the Big Book, we were given a scenario by one of the friends of the fellowship. And he was going through a pretty tough time being on thin ice, really tempted to drink. As a matter of fact, I'll recap the last paragraph just to give you an idea. Of course, he couldn't drink, but why not sit hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? And after all, had he not been sober 6 months now? Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more. Fear gripped him. All right, so we see that rationalization, that talk in his mind about, hey, you've been sober for a little while. You can handle another drink. So he's in pretty bad shape. Let's see what happens here on the bottom of page 154. Again, we're reading 154 through 156. But what about his responsibilities, his family, and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well? Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman. His sanity returned, and he thanked God. Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair. It was the usual situation. Home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. And we have an asterisk here, I'll read that real fast. This refers to Bill's first visit with Dr. Bob. These men later became co-founders of AA. Bill's story opens the text of this book. Dr. Bob heads the story section. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business, only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his plight to people from whom he'd made his livelihood? He would do anything, he said, but that. Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home. Some time later, and just as he thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on a roaring bender. For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees. He saw that he would have to face his problems squarely that God might give him mastery. One morning, he took the bull by the horns and set out to tell those he feared what his trouble had been. He found himself surprisingly well received and learned that many knew of his drinking. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people that he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business. At midnight, he came home exhausted, but very happy. He has not had a drink since. As we shall see, he now means a great deal to his community, and the major liabilities of 30 years of hard drinking had been repaired in 4. But life was not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. One day, they called up a head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic prospect. She replied, "Yes, we've got a corker. He just beaten up a couple of nurses. Goes off his head completely when he's drinking. But he's a grand chap when he's sober, though he's been in here 8 times in the last 6 weeks. Understand that he was once a well-known lawyer in town, but just now we've got him strapped down tight." All right, we got another asterisk here. This refers to Bill's and Dr. Bob's first visit to AA number 3. See the Pioneer section. This resulted in AA's first group at Akron, Ohio in 1935. All right, that concludes our reading for the Big Book. We'll definitely come back to that in just a second. Some great stuff there. All right, my friends. So if you recall, we are on step 7 and we were talking about humility. So just a refresher, step 7 says, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. The first word, humbly. So we're going to jump into humility right here and finish off page 70. Humility, as a word and an ideal, has a very bad time of it in our world. Not only is the idea misunderstood, the word itself is often intensely disliked. Many people haven't even a nodding acquaintance with humility as a way of life. Much of the everyday talk we hear, and a great deal of what we read, highlights a man's pride in his own achievements. With great intelligence, men of science have been forcing nature to disclose her secrets. The immense resources now being harnessed promise such a quantity of material blessings that many have come to believe that a man-made millennium lies just ahead. Poverty will disappear, and there will be such abundance that everybody can have all the security and personal satisfaction that he desires. All right, we will stop there. So while this is fresh, and I gotta laugh at myself, I thought I was a humble person. And thankfully, by doing the steps, and my sponsor very gently, and sometimes not so gently, reminding me, I have an ego. I have I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Go figure. That's irony if there ever was an example, but it's the truth. I would realize, when I got down to the root of why I did a lot of things, some of it was fear and a lot of it was pride. This chapter does a great job of explaining humility. And I can still pick up that pride and that ego. I certainly can. So I have to give that to my higher power every single day and try to see how I can be of use to somebody else. And step 12 really helps me with humility. To practice these principles in all our affairs. I'm a work in progress and I will be a work in progress to the day I die. There's always something I can work on to be a better person and to help somebody else, to help carry the message, help another alcoholic or just another person. That helps with humility every day. That's practical application for me. And going back to the Big Book real fast, man, I think it's just a beautiful example of the Bill and Dr. Bob story. The first 2 members of AA. Bill is on thin ice and he knows it. He is this close to going to that hotel lobby and having a few drinks. His obsession, is starting to kick in. And he's going, just a couple of drinks won't hurt. Come on. You've worked hard. You've been sober 6 months. Go for it. You can control it. Maybe you were just depressed. You can see how that rationalization's working in his mind. And I've been there. Oh my goodness, I've been there. I've rationalized so many things. But he realizes just long enough, and I think this might be perhaps a God thing. He realizes just long enough, no, I can't do that. Now, he didn't have an AA meeting to go to because there were no AA meetings yet. AA didn't exist yet. Obviously, he's the one who helps create it. So he calls the local church, asks if he can help somebody. And that's where Dr. Bob comes into the picture. And they work together. And Dr. Bob, he's a doctor, obviously, and he's making his amends to all those people that he might have wronged. And, at first, he seems to think that's very risky, and obviously so. But it turns out, one, that overall people were very welcoming and embraced the amends. And 2, most of the people he thought he fooled in his drinking knew he was drinking anyway. And once again, I can relate to that. So once again, my friends, this is just a beautiful picture of just how important it is to work with others. At least how important it was for Dr. Bob and Bill, and how important it is for me to try to help my fellow man. It helps me. And by doing this podcast, it's helping me. It's holding me accountable every single day. It's a beautiful thing. I'm getting help through this. I'm staying sober by doing this, and hopefully I'm helping somebody else as well. And with that, I'm so grateful to be in this lifeboat recovery with you. And I am looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.